We don't want to go back days. All right, good morning. This is Senate Health and Welfare. It is May 7th. And we're looking at one of our bills that's come back to us from the House, S-186, and we'll probably be doing that meeting this way for the rest of the week, just to look at where we are with our various bills, House and Senate. So Katie, thank you for being here. Why don't you go ahead and share with us what we're looking at?
Great, good morning. Katie McLean, Office of Legislative Counsel. Let me pull up the House proposal of amendment. So this is S-186, and to refresh your memory, this is the Recovery Residence Bill. The version that you sent over had two primary sections. You were asking the Health Department to look at creating a proposal for a certification program that the Health Department would run. And then also an assessment of what is happening in the state with regard to recovery residences. So those sections are both still in the bill. There have been some smaller changes in those sections, so I'll walk you through where those are. And then the House added a few sections. Really what they have done is they have edited themselves, because in another House bill, H639, there was language that was short-term language until a health department certification could be operable. That was looking at the sort of rights and protections that recovery residences and residents had with regard to when somebody was exiting a program or needing to exit a program. So the House Human Services Committee took that language from an earlier House bill, put it into their bill, and they amended that quite significantly. And you'll see that that is in there, and a related reporting requirement is in there, and then those two sections are sunset after 2 years, with the idea that you probably likely could be back within the next year or two after you get the health department's proposal looking at a certification program, permanent program.
So it all be integrated. Theoretically.
Yeah. So the idea is that these last sections that we'll get to are more of a stopgap to offer some protections and gather more data before a more permanent program is put in place.
Thank you.
Okay, so first your two sections that you sent over. Language here, the problem is I can't remember off the top of my head what the underlying language had been that they were changing. So this language is new. The House added this. So that the Department of Health, in consultation with state agencies and community partners, shall develop and recommend a certification program for recovery residences operating in the state that choose to obtain certification. So that's a recognition that some programs won't choose that. I had the wrong name for Vermont Alliance for Recovery Residents, so we've changed it to 4. So it is accurate as reflected on the website.
Terrible.
I know.
Will the certification process go through OPR? Is that?
I believe the certification goes through the health department.
Okay,
Yeah.
Which makes sense.
it does make sense, yeah.
Then in this subsection A, your lead-in language is the recommended certification program shall also, am I in the right place? 5. This language has changed.
All of it?
Right here, nope. This is everything that is going to be considered as part of the program. There was a incorrect word here. It made no sense. So it was probably my error when it left the Senate. I think it might have said effective recovery requirement instead of recovery environment. So that was corrected there. And then in subdivision 6, we do have more language. So this is your language right here. Establish the required policies and procedures regarding the provision of services by recovery residences, including policies and procedures related to resident rights. That was all your language. And then the House created more detail here, and this is their language. Including the following minimum standards for residential agreements. contents of initial resident agreements, resident discharge policies, length of time a bed shall be held for a resident who temporarily exits a recovery residence, and criteria by which a resident can return to the recovery residence in the event of temporary removal. So that was added by the House. Another addition, they added subdivisions 7 and 8. Recommend an appropriate term for a non-certified recovery residence. There was a lot of conversation as to what a recovery residence would be called if it wasn't certified after the certification process happens. And would there be confusion if recovery residence assumes that it was a certified recovery residence? So this is asking the health department and stakeholders to sort of look at that issue and give a recommendation. And then identify minimum reporting requirements about recovery residences by the certifying body, including reports on the temporary and permanent removal of residents, which the certifying body shall aggregate for regular submission to the department. So a reporting requirement, what data should the department be collecting on an ongoing basis? And subdivision B, your leading language is in developing the certification program. Recommendations required pursuant to this section, the department shall consider.
Is this all added by the House or do we have something?
You had this.
I thought so,
You had
okay.
this, yeah.
Good.
But I wanted the lead in language because in subdivision 1, there's a change.
Okay,
Shall consider available funding streams to sustainably maintain, and that's the new language. You had expand recovery residences services throughout the state, and they added maintain and right there. They also changed the language right here. I think your language was how to remove barriers that address the availability of recovery residences, and they said how to address. And then they added this new subdivision 4, how to engage non-certified recovery residences in the certification process. And the report date here, or the date by which the program, the health department gives its recommendations has been changed to January 15th of this coming year. You're gonna ask me what you had and I don't remember. Yeah. As soon as I said it, I
we
knew.
would have had it earlier.
Yes,
I think we had November or something.
October.
October, yeah,
October this year.
we were really anxious to get the results. So.
So the conversation,
Maybe unrealistic.
yeah, it was October 15th. The conversation upstairs was that they would still have time for a committee bill if it came in then. Which would, I mean, it would be tight, but they sort of recognize that. Okay. And then we had some organization. Okay, so the next section was the assessment and the evaluation on recovery residences. So there's new language here. I'll just highlight it. Is this helpful? So you can sort of
This
see
is
where it is.
really helpful.
Okay.
Yeah,
So the Department of Health shall complete an assessment of certified and non-certified recovery residences to make clear that the evaluation is more holistic than just certified. So that language is new, and then they added which shall. That is more of a technical change. Your lead-in language had language about technical assistance. And they have not lost the concept of technical assistance, but they've moved it down to its own standalone sentence in another subsection. So it's just been moved, but the concept has been preserved. Because the lead-in language has changed, the verb, the way the verb is structured at the beginning of each subdivision has changed, but the substance of those subdivisions have not changed. And here is the language on technical assistance right here.
got it.
The department may obtain technical assistance to complete the assessment required pursuant to subsection A. And there is also, you'll notice that this is a may obtain. Their conversation upstairs was, even if there wasn't technical assistance, the idea is that we'd still like the health department to move forward with this. So they didn't want the necessity of obtaining technical assistance to stop the,
Hold it all.
yeah. And then you have a new date here, December 15th of 25, and that was also October 15th of 24. So they can move that back 2 months.
Okay. What's the deadline for getting bills in the first session? It goes on.
Or don't know off the top of my head.
Yeah.
I wanna say it's longer.
It
in the
is
first
longer,
year
because
than
the
I
second one is
do remember.
the December one, so the first one is the longer one, so this'll fit.
Yeah, I can get it for you, but I don't carry that information.
Don't worry about it. It's fine, it's fine.
Okay, so this new language, the next 3 sections, section 3, 4, and 5, are new to you. But as I said, that they are amending, the House is amending its own work here. So this is language, creating sort of a carve out to certain provisions of landlord tenant law with regard to recovery residences. And there's also some specifications as to when a recovery residence can exit a person or transfer a person. So that's what you're looking at here. So we have some notwithstanding language that we can go over in more detail in a minute. A recovery residence may immediately exit or transfer a resident if all of the following are met. This is a little bit of a longer list. So the recovery residence has developed and adopted a residential agreement. And then we go into what has to be in the agreement. It contains a written exit and transfer policy approved by VTAR or another certifying organization approved by the health department. It addresses the length of time that a bed will be held in the event of a temporary removal. It establishes the criteria by which a resident can return to the recovery residence in the event of a temporary removal.
Can I ask a question? So on I, if a specific organization decides not to pursue certification, why do we have all these other actions related to being certified? Like the second, like sentence number 2 or line number 2. That has to be approved by that alliance or another certified. If they're not pursuing certification, why?
Well, that's a good question, I think, but VAR is related to the National Organization on Recovery Residents, and they would have an understanding of what this uncertified program is doing, as well as the certified program. Katie, I don't know how more fully to say that.
So recovery residence in this instance is defined as a residence that's certified by VTAR. We haven't gotten to the definition yet. So we're saying that a residence that's certified by VTAR has, in order to exit somebody, has to do the following. So this
I get
isn't,
that. It's the uncertified.
yeah, this isn't governing the uncertified ones. This isn't.
That whole subject doesn't relate to uncertified.
It doesn't because of the way recovery residence is certified in this section. It's, I'm emphasizing in this section because the definition of recovery residence in the 2 previous sections is different because you're trying to capture certified and uncertified in your assessment, for example. Okay. Okay, so this is still what is part of the policy, the exit and transfer policy. Ensures a resident's possessions will be held not less than 60 days in the event of permanent removal. It designates alternative housing arrangements for the resident.
Pause. I'm sure.